So, scary story time. So, continuing working at the Sephora inside JCPenney's, I was working there for about 3 years. So, my experiences that I had there and accumulated all the stories from the other previous employees that I worked with, it was really, really interesting. And I say interesting and I wasn't the only one that experienced all these occurrences that happen, right? So, experiencing like the ghosts and whatnot. And it wasn't just ghosts that you would encounter people with different types of energies. So, I remember there was an incident where, being like I'm learning about my native culture, and you would have people that were just really strange out of the dark. Like, they would just come lurking on the dark, and they would come and make stupid remarks about like me being indigenous, right? And there was one lady, she came in and she was this Mexican lady, just racist as fuck. And she's like, "Oh, you're Native American." She's like, "I don't like natives and this and this and that." So I had to educate her and be like, "Well, you're Mexican, right? Like, so you would be considered native yourself." And she's like, "No, like all natives are dirty, da da da." And I was like, "Girl, I ain't got no problem with you. Like, you just funny. Like, you acting funny. I ain't got time to entertain your shenanigans." So the weird thing was, this woman that was going off on me about being native, I was on the register and I was working next to my coworker Rudy, and she was cool. And that girl had my back majority of all the time. Like, me and her didn't get along, but she had my back all the time. Like, when it came to people being stupid, because me and her, we bumped heads because we had the same personality. So as this lady was talking ish about me, she just switches up and says, "You know what? I like your energy." And I said, "The fuck? Like, you just basically said you didn't like me. You didn't like me being native. Now all of a sudden you like my energy." And she's like, "Well, I take back what I said." And I said, No. I don't trust you." So she goes and she tries to like soothe me by like going behind the register and try to like rub my shoulder. And I said, "Ma'am, you need to back up." And she's like, "Why?" She's like, "I told you I like your energy." I was like, "You need to back the fuck up, because I don't like people touching me." She's like, "I can do whatever I want." So my coworker Rudy is right behind me, and she's like, "Ma'am," she gets in front of me and she says, "If he told you he doesn't want you touching him, then you need to back the fuck off." And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna do whatever I want." And she's like, "Well, if you do, I'm gonna call security." So the lady was like, "Well, I'll be back." So she comes back a week later. I tell the managers before she comes in. I told the managers, and I told them, like, "Hey, I had this weird experience with this lady. She was very weird and awkward, and she just kept touching me, and you know me, I don't like being touched." And they're like, "Okay, we'll keep an eye on her." So she finds me on a day where I'm stationed where Shiseido was, and I think it was something Glow, right? Glam Glow. And I'm cleaning, and the lady goes and she taps my shoulder. And she's like, "I told you I'd be back." And I was like, "What the fuck do you want?" And she's like, "I just told you I would like your energy." And she starts rubbing on my shoulder. I told her to back up. The next thing you know, this bitch decides to go ahead and grab me by my hair. She pulls me by my mohawk and yanks me back. And I said, "Okay, this is getting a little too personal." I said, "I'm about to knock you the fuck out." And she's like, "Why?" And she starts laughing. And she's like, "I told you I like your energy." She's like, "I told you I'm going to come back." I was like, "Not only did you come back to taunt me, you actually pulled my fucking hair." And I said, "And one thing, as a native, we don't like getting our hair touched. It's in general. You're not supposed to touch anybody's fucking hair. I don't give a fuck if you have permission to touch it or not. Don't touch my fucking hair." She goes and she starts laughing, and she goes, "What are you going to do about it?" So I turn around, because I'm like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to be the bigger person, leave the bitch alone. Because if I swing at her, then I'm going to go to jail. She goes and she grabs me by my hair again, but this time she yanks it so hard, I almost fell back. So Rudy wasn't working there. It was another girl. We'll just call her Natalie. Natalie's coming, and then there's another girl named Mariah. Mariah comes, and they're basically trying to meet me in the middle. And they're witnessing what's going on. And they're like, "Ma'am," they're like, "Is there something we can help you with? Because, you have no right to be pulling on his hair." And she's like, "I could do whatever I want." So I told them, I was like, "Call security." So they call security. And she's like, "What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do?" She's like, "I told you, like, energy. I'm totally going to come for you." And then I was like, "What the fuck is she talking about? I'm going to come for you." So she gets closer to my face. And she's up in my face, like, literally, like, about to kiss me. And she's like, "I told you." She's like, "I'm going to get what I want." And I said, "The fuck you're not." So she goes and she grabs my wrist. She tries to grab my palm, like she's trying to put her palm in my palm, and I'm like, I take that shit right back, because I'm like, you're not about to play this game, girl. So the moment she goes and she tries to reach over for my hand again, she goes like this, right? She just barely doesn't even touch my bracelets. And mind you, I had 5 bracelets. All 5 of my bracelets on one wrist breaks off. The other one breaks off and just bursts. It just explodes. And it just falls on the pieces. And my coworkers are just like, what the fuck is just going on? Like, this is just so weird. So as they're breaking and they're all over on the ground, the lady starts laughing, and one of the beads hits another guest on the forehead. Like, one just so happened to fly to someone else that was like 4 steps away from me, and just flicks her right on the freaking temple. So that lady's getting mad at me. So I'm having all these like issues at this, going on right now. Like this lady, and then I have my coworkers, and I have this lady yelling at me. Security comes and was like, what's going on? So like the lady that got flicked with the bead was like trying to tell the security guard, and I was like, look, first of all, I was like, I'll deal with you in a bit. I told security, this woman has been harassing me since last week, and she came again and she snatched me by my hair. So they looked at the footage. So they basically escorted the lady, and I told the lady, I was like, since you get what you want, I got what I want, so now fucking leave me alone. So they banned her from coming into JCPenney's. That lady that got the bead flung on her forehead, after she calmed down, I told her, I was like, look, I'm sorry, my bracelet broke. I don't know how it so happened to hit you. And she said, what, that's kind of strange. So I gave her some samples, and, she became a really good friend afterwards. And it was just working there. It was just really weird because, like, as concentrated as that mall was, it was very dark and heavy. Like, there were some days where you couldn't even work in there because it was so heavy. You felt like you couldn't breathe. And so there was one time where there was a lady, and she was well known supposedly to be psychic, and she would always scout for different girls in the Sephora floor, and she would wait by makeup forever and just kind of pick and choose randomly who she wanted. She would go up to the girl and tell her, Spirit told me to tell you this and that, like just things that whatever, just to kind of reel you in. And then the girls would always get a headache. So there was one time where I was like, okay, she spoke to everybody else, and she spoke to Johnny, which was one of the guys that worked there, and it was just me and him that were the only ones out there, but she never approached me. And so I asked the girls, I was like, hey, whenever you see her, ask her why she won't approach me. So the girls told me that the lady didn't like my energy. I was like, okay, cool. So there was one time where I caught the lady off guard, and I said, hey, you're finding everything okay? She goes, no. And I was like, why not? She's like, I don't like you. And I was like, well, I don't like you either. And she said, why? She's like, what are you talking to me for? And I was like, well, because I'm like, you're over there scouting for everybody else. I was like, you're offering readings, right? I was like, how can you offer me a reading? And she said, well, because I don't need to. And I was like, well, let me give you a reading. I said, the shit that you're doing right now, it needs to stop. Because if not, it's going to catch up to you. And I'm going to guarantee you everything that you have is going to be stripped away from you. She didn't listen. A couple weeks passed. She comes back. She got into a car accident. She lost her job. She lost her house. Her husband divorced her. She comes back to me and is like, what the fuck did you do in this and that? And I told her, I was like, oh, you remember how you said that you were giving readings? Well, I was like, sweetheart, I didn't need to charge you. I just told you what exactly you needed to fucking do. And you didn't listen to anything that I told you. So remind me again, who are you? Because you don't know who the fuck I am. She stayed quiet. I never saw her after that. There was other incidences where we had like just weird random people just come up to you and just would always they would just come up to random girls, right? And these are people that would just be really tired and exhausting, like, oh my god, like the world is gonna end. And as soon as like a girl or anybody would or the managers would apply makeup or style their hair, this is like the time when Sephora was transitioning to do hair and facials. I kid you not, all the girls and I would just be drained. We would just feel like the life would be sucked out of us. Like there were so many energy vampires. Like a lot of the girls had to start carrying tourmalines with them because I told them that they need to started wearing tourmalines. A lot of them started investing in evil eye bracelets because there was just so much shit going on left and right. It felt like you were getting attacked by nothing but energy vampires, and it was just horrible. So one incident that I would never forget working at JCPenney's was the elevators. And as mentioned, I've accumulated all these stories from different people. So that being said,